Hi everyone, and welcome to the Vassals of Kingsgrave. Today we will be like full-on major spoiler discussion because George released a new chapter from the Winds of Winter, which means we have about a third of the book at this point. But this is especially special because it's our first Sansa chapter in like 10 years because she wasn't in Dance, and let's face it, she was barely in Feast. So it's a very, very important day and very special. So my name is Michal. I'm inkasrain on the forums, and I'm joined by Zach.
Hey, this is Zach, also known as Alias in the podcast Vice and Fire forums. That's where they are. Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's where they are.
The most words.
Yeah, who's next? Duncan?
Oh, hi. My name's Duncan, also known as Valkyrist on the forums.
Greg?
This is Greg, claudiusthefool on the forums.
Julia?
Hi, this is Julia. I am no true lady on the forums.
We should call you Chulia, like chewing.
Yeah, true. Because I'm almost done with my dinner, so we can dive right in.
And Matt.
Hey, this is Matt Varley on the forums.
And Shane. I said that like it was the last one, but it's not. Shane is here too.
Hey, this is Shane, easttexasdirewolf on the forums.
All right. So, I guess I'm curious, it was a little bit hectic, I think, the release today. And I think everything George releases kind of gets more and more intense and hectic as, time goes by. So does anyone have any interesting stories about how they found this chapter? Because I was actually really lucky. I think I saw it super early, and I was at the car wash. And I saw that Linda and Ilio posted, like, George published a new chapter, and we're not going to say who it is. And I was like, oh my god, it's Sansa. And then I saw it, and it was Elaine, and the website was still working at that point. So I sat while my car was washed and had to drive home, like, half reading on my phone, which was probably not a good idea, but whatever.
Yeah, I think it was. I think I went up pretty early in the morning for Americans, but an Australian girl on the forum posted it, and I just stopped what I was doing and just read the whole thing as soon as possible. It was pretty exciting.
Michal posted about it on Twitter this morning. I was like, what? And then she posted the link to me, and I read it in the car on my phone, but I wasn't driving, so it's okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I just got the newsletter from Tor.com, and I usually just skim through them, but I saw, like, George R. R. Martin new chapter. I was like, oh, what is this? And it was an actual new chapter. It's like, oh, like, weird that I didn't find it from my 95 times that I usually refresh Podcast Device and Fire over an hour period, but I got it from that.
I think that'd be beat.
Yeah, I saw it on a Podcast Device and Fire forums.
Yep, that's where they are. Mm-hmm.
It's interesting, though, because this is pretty much the same as what we got last year with Mercy, a week before the new season of Game of Thrones came out.
Yeah, which really makes you wonder about what's going to happen. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. This scene's going to happen in the season.
Just every new season, a new chapter, until the whole book's been released in chapter form. Season 90 of Game of Thrones.
I was trying to think of what from the chapter could be in the season, because 90% of the characters they reference we haven't met, so it's got to be like big picture stuff or just the tone, of like this stuff's going down.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've met them. Have you seen the trailer? Like all the guys with the falcon things on the back.
Yeah, look, I always assume
that's
those were just Vale
That's
Knights. That's the 8.
But it seems to take place like right where we would be in Sansa's story at Game of Thrones.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, the interesting thing is, and it was also funny because I think George released like a new, like a fuller chapter from like the World of Ice and Fire or something like last week. So when I saw a new chapter initially, I was like, oh, that's that boring thing. And then it wasn't.
Yeah, it's a Westerlands like expansion.
Yeah.
I wish.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
That's boring.
Oh, yeah. I so wish he'd released it on the Wednesday and everyone thought it was an April Fool's joke. All the links were just like April Fool's jokes and no one clicked on them.
Mm-hmm. It would have been really funny. But also really mean.
Well, speaking of just general George updates, it does sound like there was a blog post last week where he alluded to the fact that he's having to clear his schedule for the next couple months so he can get the Winds manuscript to the publisher basically at the beginning of summer here, I think.
Yeah,
Well,
he said he was cancelling a few convention appearances because he wanted to work on the books. Then he might still go to the conventions if he finished the book in time. So most people took that as encouraging, but I don't think he's saying he's almost finished. Quite
Right.
People are just reading into it.
If he shows up at San Diego Comic-Con, that's a good sign.
Yeah.
I mean, I think
I-
the reason I was encouraged by hearing that was because George never does this. Like after the like debacle of the "it'll be out in a year" note at the end of Feast for Crows, like he's really clamped down on giving any indication of where the book is in progress. So just that fact that he like felt confident enough to mention something made me hopeful, but at the same time I'm like, we're gonna be laughing at this in 3 years. Being like, remember when we thought it was gonna come out?
That's true, though. He has made a point to be way more tight-lipped, so that little nugget of information was a little bit encouraging, but, as you say, it's all hindsight.
Yeah, I just got a good feeling from it, so it's not like it's just, I got a good feeling from it, so hopefully we'll keep going in that direction.
Any source of hope we can nourish ourselves with.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, sweet
Winter will
summer
never
children.
And I am one of those.
We
sweet
still
summer
haven't
children.
learned. We're
No,
still
I-
Sansa in the woods.
Yeah, I'm still hopeful.
So how many spoiler chapters
Well,
have there
the
been?
nice thing about
I don't read a lot
there's
of
like
them.
half
I've
a
only read
dozen
couple.
out there at this point.
I think there's
Not all of
four
them are-
like regular, and then like four like from what he's read from conventions and.
No, I think there's
Yeah,
more than
which
that.
are only
Well,
he
There's,
released
There's 2 Tyrions, right? There's 2 Tyrion.
two
There's
Tyrians, two Arians.
But published.
Two
no, not
Barristan.
published. Not published.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Oh, you
like
mean just on
four,
his
I
site?
think proper, and then.
well, no, because there was one Tyrion released on like the World of Ice and Fire app, and then there was the Barristan Selmy chapter that was from the back of Winds of Winter. Then there was the the back of Dance with Dragons. Then there was the.
Oh, I thought that was Reek or whatever.
Theon, yeah. There's a Theon one.
We did a podcast the beginning of last year where we covered all the chapters up until that point, so early 2014. Some were basically summaries from conventions, and some were actually taken from books. I think the only one that was a bit of both was the Victorian chapter. Like half of it was in print form, and half of it was just from notes taken at conventions. And then after that was the Mercy chapter. So we're pretty much up to date.
In any event, there's a lot of
Yeah,
them,
and
and now there's more.
We're not
So if
complaining.
nothing
Also,
else, we do
I
know, like Michal said, we already have 1/3 of the book. So at least
Yeah.
that's done.
Well, I just wanted to say, guys, that of what we have, it's all pretty much like the introduction chapters for these characters, like the first time we see them. This is probably Sansa's like first chapter in the book. The one we saw from Arya is probably the first chapter in the book. So I feel like we're not getting too deep into the narrative yet, but they're very, very much setting the stage chapters, like bringing us up to speed.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
I'm not sure though,
have it,
because I don't, maybe this is me jumping into it too much, but the sense I got reading it, it didn't feel, it felt like there was a transition missing. I felt like there was something that was going to happen to lead up to this, but maybe that's just the impression I was getting that this may have been written before the whole 5-year gap thing was scrapped, because to me it did feel like the Elaine character in this felt a little bit distinct from what we saw in the past, but maybe that's just what happens with the
The last
whatever.
time we saw her was when they were leaving the Eyrie, right?
Right, yeah, and then now
That was
they're
Yeah,
they're
were
there, I
leaving.
guess.
Yeah,
Right.
I didn't
Yeah,
think
it's-
years
No,
went
I
by,
totally
but
agree with
definitely
that.
some time went by.
It's been a while, yeah. It's been a full book since we've seen them. Although it seems like this is meant to take place during A Dance with Dragons, because there's no news of Cersei's trial and Aegon's landing and all that. And I think there was originally going to be a Sansa chapter in A Dance with Dragons that he decided to hold over, like the Theon chapter. So it might still be before the timeline of the end of A Dance with Dragons.
Oh, that's
But at the
interesting.
same time,
Yeah.
the Vale has been a little bit checked out from the whole conflict,
Right.
and it may just be
Sure,
a matter of it is going on. They just haven't heard about it yet.
And Littlefinger may be deliberately
I mean,
keeping
but
that
we-
information to himself. Yeah.
Well, no, because they mentioned the tapestries like in a letter from Littlefinger in Feast.
Do we want to do lemon cake ratings before we get into
Yeah,
the...
I think
Okay,
we should.
yeah.
Yeah, let's
Yeah.
just go around and do our lemon cake ratings. I guess I'll go first. It's so hard. I mean, I would probably give this a 4. It did feel a little bit unedited and a little bit like fast, but I thought the ending was really masterful, and I just love the idea that Sansa is like literally dancing with her future and with her potential as a character, and I thought that was really awesome. So probably 4.5 for me. Julia, what about you?
Yeah, I'm there as well. Like, obviously, it's not completely polished up yet, but yeah, I think 4.5 for me, just because it's so wonderful to see Sansa have come not quite full circle, but one of the observations I had about this chapter, because it made me think back to the Arya/Mercy chapter, is in a way, both the Stark sisters have gotten what they wanted at their detriment. Arya wanted to be a warrior and Sansa wanted to be a lady, and they're finding out the truth behind both those paths. And so I'm very excited for her, but I'm also very concerned. But we'll get into that.
Zach, what about you?
Yeah, I'm kind of in that range as well, like 3.754-ish area. I thought it was really enjoyable, just really a fun read, and like you guys say, it was really cool to see Sansa taking this kind of action. I just found it very exciting, and I'm looking forward whatever time it takes to see what happens next with that. And yeah, I just thought it was fun. There are quibbles. Again, like this thing, like that was kind of jarring for me. It's not really a huge critique, but it was the fact that it didn't really feel. It felt like some of it felt a lot like Sansa, but some of it felt very at odds. But I think that I can easily chalk it up to her sort of like growing up and kind of maturing. And someone made a really good point in the forums that she's always had this kind of manipulative ability about her, and I think this is just the natural extension of that, the way she's playing it here. So I can totally buy it, and for that reason, I was perfectly fine with it.
Shane?
I'd give it 4. I liked it. I enjoyed seeing Sansa's growth, and it was nice to have a chapter where there was nothing horrible going on.
Yeah.
It was kind of pleasant and fun, so that was a nice change of pace.
Yeah, the horrible was nicely tucked away at the edges of the chapter.
Yeah. Greg?
Yeah, pretty much on par. It's, nothing major was revealed, but I liked all the little, characters we either hadn't seen before or hadn't seen in quite some time. I liked meeting Sir Shadrach because, that's obviously going to come back. And I liked how Sansa was playing Harding to get. All right, thank you. I was waiting for that. Okay.
Oh,
All right, I'll leave. And a full lemon cake for Sir Targon the Half-Wild, because I just want to know his story.
Yeah, I wanted to hear more about him too when I heard that name.
Matt, how about you?
So I was totally psyched when this came out. Like, just 5 because we get something new. It was nice to revisit this character and to see how kind of confused she was, because when we last left her, she's like, oh no, Littlefinger's my father. And then I know, like, we have this later on in the show notes, but she's like, I miss my father, Eddard Stark. And I was like, oh.
So she does directly, in her thoughts, later refer to Littlefinger as her father. Like, it's really interesting how the whole, like, crisis of identity is being managed throughout.
Yeah. And so, like, yeah, it's a little rough and needs to be tightened up, but, like, I enjoyed it overall. So between a 4 and a 5 would be 4.5.
Cool. And Duncan?
Yeah, I really liked it. I thought it was great to see Sansa after such a long time. What really struck me was how light and pleasant the writing was. It felt like it was much closer in tone to like The Hedge Knight than A Song of Ice and Fire.
Yeah.
But it's by no means a criticism, because I really like the court intrigue part of the series, especially when it actually involves a character I want to root for. But yeah, my guard's definitely up about some of the horrors that might be lurking around this sort of otherwise serene setting. And yeah, as people have said, I love how clever and proactive Sansa has become at this point. And it's great to see her interacting with so many characters after spending what felt like a lot of alone time in Feast Dance. And overall, it didn't blow me away like the Mercy chapter did from last year, but I'm pretty thrilled to have the Stark sisters finally moving forward with their storyline. So it gives me a lot of hope for the Winds of Winter. I'm tempted to give it 4 phallic-shaped lemon cakes, but
Oh, God.
14 feet long or whatever it was.
Oh, dear.
12 feet.
Yeah.
Let's not exaggerate. It was only
Excuse
12
me, I'm
feet.
sorry. I can't help myself.
Guys, what's that a reference to? I came in late.
it's in the chapter.
The 12-foot
The
lemon
lemon
cake.
cake that took every lemon in the Vale.
Oh,
It's a big
yeah.
towel.
Oh,
Ball 4
I
lemons.
gotta reread it. What?
I won't give it 4. I'll give it 3.5, because compared to other Sansa chapters, it's probably around there, but still very enjoyable.
Yeah. So the interesting thing, well, I mean, I think a lot of people had this thought that like there's been a rumor of this like controversial / upsetting or whatever Sansa chapter for a few years now. And I think Isaac certainly was like, oh my God, is this it? And then I read it and I was like, probably not. But does anyone think that this is the...
Actually, I think it is. I think it was Elio Garcia that originally said that, and he mentioned on Twitter that this was the chapter he was talking about, and which sounds bizarre because it's nothing particularly controversial. But his statement apparently was sort of hyped up a bit by the interview he was being conducted with Vulture, and basically what he meant was it may be controversial to some people because of Elaine's kind of burgeoning sexuality, and that the focus of the sexuality doesn't have anything to do with the Hound. So that's pretty much all he meant. So it's probably hyped up more than it should have been.
Wow. So we were expecting a lot worse, right?
Yeah, we were expecting like sexual assault and things, but it wasn't.
Like, get raped.
Well, in hindsight, this is less disturbing than the Mercy chapter was. If
exactly, that was way more disturbing.
Yeah, seriously.
The Mercy chapter, is that about Arya?
Yeah.
The Mercy chapter was a lot more stomach churning for me with some of the harassment that she had to endure.
Well, the interesting thing about the Mercy chapter and about this chapter was I thought that the Mercy chapter was like, oh, Arya's grown up. And this felt like Sansa in her head almost felt a little bit younger than I had expected her to feel.
Yeah, that was one of the weird, like, sort of disorienting things for me. Like, a lot of her action felt very grown up to me, but yeah, in her head, there's a lot of the Sansa-isms, I guess, that we've had for a while. Like, I don't know, like the like her tummy, like, you know, doing a flip and stuff. You know, all these things we've been used to forever.
But for me, it was kind of like, oh, it's still Sansa, it's still her. The way I see Sansa is she is assimilating all these different experiences and taking what she finds useful and actually likes and leaving the stuff she doesn't like or was traumatic behind as much as she can. So, this final incarnation, this is not her final form. This dark Sansa, or whatever people like to call her in the show, with that crazy winged
This isn't even my final form.
Exactly. We haven't seen her final form yet, but I mean, like,
can't wait.
If I could just finish, I just wanted to like call back on the show a little bit. How when she was in King's Landing and under the influence of the Lannisters, she was wearing a lot of pink, which was sort of like a watered down red, and wearing her hair like King's Landing ladies and that weird like braid, and then she started sort of imitating Marjorie a little bit. And now it's like she's gone off. Well, she is kind of like doing like Littlefinger style right now, but it's like she's
pointy beard and all.
Yeah. Well, her outfit is very pointy. The winged dress that debuted at the end of last season it blew me away.
I think that where you're saying like she had a wing, jacket at the end of last season, like at the end of the book where her storyline was, it wasn't the same. She like saved Littlefinger's bacon, so he figured it out, and now they're gonna like go on this like where this chapter is going, I feel like. And in this chapter I feel like she knows how to flirt, but otherwise it's like a woman's defense is her courtesy or whatever she says at some point in this chapter.
Yeah, she does. A woman's armor.
Yeah.
She was manipulating Joffrey way back,
A bit, yeah.
She wasn't necessarily being flirty with it, but she was using her wits to, steer the situation the way she wanted it.
Well, she was on the defensive, I guess. She's far more proactive in manipulating things.
I think and it was jarring for me at first. I kind of get what you're saying, Matt, but I do think it is a very natural extension of her behavior back, sort of with Joffrey back in King's Landing. It's just the sort of a new take on it and a more mature take.
And I think she's a lot more comfortable with wearing the Elaine mask. I think, like in the past couple of books, she's had to be really careful about protecting her Sansa identity, and she's like, I'm Elaine, to the point where she almost had to think as though she was Elaine and forego all of this dark family history. Part of that was just like because it's so painful to remember all your family is dead, but part of it was also for her own protection. But I think here you get more, she's actually remembering her family fondly, so I think she's a lot more comfortable wearing it as a separate thing, as a kind of mask, but also being able to keep that Sansa identity alive. And in many ways they're almost sort of merging, like she's enjoying being here and having fun flirting with people and watching the nights and watching the beautiful colors. The same Sansa is still in there, but it's sort of merged with this more sort of older, more mature kind of Elaine identity.
Yeah, I think this is the first
Yeah.
time
Well,
that she's
that's-
had friends. You know, she had Marjorie in King's Landing, but she couldn't be open, and even though people knew she was Sansa, she couldn't. She was watching every single word she said, and here it's almost like she's running the show with Littlefinger, and she also has Miranda and Maya and these people around her, like where she's running and they were frolicking. I was like, oh, I feel so happy for her. She's running and frolicking. She has never done that in 4 books, you know. So it was like
And
a nice
a
little
lot of
break.
it,
Right.
a big part of it is an act. It's like, as you say, it's a weapon. It's an instrument for manipulating people and making her seem non-dangerous, but actually manipulating things. But she's also enjoying it, which is it's really nice to see. Like we haven't got a chapter this sort of hopeful and pleasant in so long.
God, it was so nice.
Yeah,
Also,
it was
like, you know
delightful.
that the
That's
war is
true.
starting and like the kingdoms are burning. There's a battle in the north. There's a battle in the east. You know, John got stabbed, and you're like, oh, let's have a tourney.
Yeah, I'm so excited.
64
When you think about the
courses.
Vale's been it's felt very isolating. Like she's been up in this cold mountain with no friends, with this horrible little kid to take care of. She's had to deal with her horrible mother-in-law. But this is the first time she can actually come out of her shell and enjoy it. And she has the skills, like the acting skills and the manipulatory skills to handle it. So I'm very hopeful about Sansa's journey going forward.
Of course.
Well, that was sort of
She's gonna be
that was
queen.
sort of my point, possibly.
I hope
But
so.
no, that was my point though about how both the Stark sisters have gotten what they wanted. Like this is what it means to be a lady, to be swept up, to seem like you're being swept up and everything, but you're actually very much in control of the whole situation. So she's getting what she wants, and Arya is getting what she wants over on the other side of the Narrow Sea. But one thing I noticed here with Sansa that was a similar theme in Arya's Mercy chapter is that their sexuality is they're not able to actually like have romances or like do things for enjoyment. It's all means to an end, and I'm just really worried that their bodies are soon going to have to cash these checks that their mouths have been writing, and what that's going to mean for them, it could be pretty ugly.
So they'll be
Well,
like every other woman in Westeros? The female,
Yeah,
I should say.
basically, yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that on Sansa. I think she's in far more control of who her suitors are and all that. But Arya, I think she's really messed up. Like I don't see anything but darkness ahead of her. Maybe she's getting some sense of control and being able to kill people and maybe moving away from the faceless men and all that. But she seems so twisted psychologically and sexually that it's going to take a lot to sort of get her out of that basin of horribleness.
If she ever gets out of it.
Sansa also has like the concept that sexuality could be pleasant. She has these like feelings for the Hound that she doesn't know. Obviously, they're not like sweet and adorable, but like she enjoys them in a certain way. And as sexually traumatized as she has been, and I was actually surprised that she was like, "Oh, I hope Harry." I was like surprised that she was going along with this marriage idea. She was so kind of. I felt like she had kind of come to a place where like she did not want to be married again. She did not want to be married to Sweet Robin. She did not want to do any of that. So I was a little surprised. But she kind of, I guess I'm glad for her in that she's not totally blind to the idea that like there could be something good there, whereas Arya, I feel like, has just been programmed to, because she was so young, like Sansa kind of like had like the like little fluttery sexy feelings, like in a good context. Arya has never experienced that. Like she wasn't even old enough to really understand what she had with Gendry, if you see it in the way that it obviously should be seen, which is romantic. But so that was
agreed.
Yeah.
Well, I think Arya's always had something a little bit off. Like, even when you go back to the first book, you get comments like from Ned's men, like, I've never seen such fury in a girl before all these horrible things happened to her. So I think it's more of an extension of that. Whereas Sansa, even though she's had a lot of trauma happen to her, she seems to have preserved some kind of sense of self and some kind of sense of empathy and sort of humanity, I guess, which is good.
Wait a minute. Do you think she had humanity like while she was in King's Landing before they cut off Ned's head?
Arya?
Yeah. I mean, she
we
made
don't
some
know that.
silly.
All are.
She made some silly, immature decisions, but I never didn't think she was a person or had empathy or whatever.
Yeah, I've always read the journey of the Stark sisters as as normal girls doing normal girl things. One's a tomboy, the other wants to be, prim and proper, and then things go horribly wrong. That's the way I've always read it. Like, I never went through that whole phase of many fans of hating Sansa. It's like, I remember reading it, like the chapters for the first time, like, this is a really good depiction of what it's like to be in a 13-year-old girl's head. This is and like, I pictured Harry the Heir as being Harry Styles from One Direction,
Sounds right.
Oh boy.
I think that's giving Harry a lot of credit. Harry the Heir, a lot of credit.
I wouldn't dance with Harry.
I would dance with
Harry.
anyone because I'm an equal opportunity dancer.
Bravo.
Good for you.
Yeah.
We need more men like you in the world. More people, more humans. But yeah, so I mean, the sexuality, I guess I was a little surprised that it, again, maybe just being primed by this comment that like, it's going to be controversial. I was primed to be more upset than I was, but yeah, I mean, I agree. It was tame compared to what Arya was doing, and the whole thing with Harry. I don't know. Should we kind of go in order, or should we just go to Harry? Let's go in order. I'm gonna say.
Yeah, go in order.
Yeah, we should go in order. Yeah.
Right. So Sansa is talking to Robin, who is still disgusting. It felt to me like Sansa was kind of coming to the end of her rope, but at the same time, I don't know if that rope has an end. Where Sweet Robin is concerned, because I mean, what is she like? She can't stop taking care of him. That's not an option. So.
Oh, I don't think she's going to have that problem for much longer.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
No.
We did get another sweet sleep
Reference,
It's weird because it seemed like she was slightly sympathetic towards him than I'd previous. Like, a lot of people assume that she despises him and she won't really care when he gets killed off. But I don't know. She seems to take pity on him a little bit. Like, she's sort of mothering him a little bit, and she gets some kind of emotional fulfillment maybe out of being the mother. And I guess there's also like the political power that wields, that she's got him wrapped around her finger.
Well, he is her cousin. I mean, he is at this point, like the only blood family she's got, around. So, there's that aspect of it.
Yeah.
Well, I think that the relationship with Sweet Robin is just sort of there sort of like for her to cut her teeth on manipulation wise. And for her to really, I think that's just showing us how far she has come in terms of being a power player.
See, I don't think anything she does with Sweet Robin could be counted as manipulation, because I don't think, I mean, that's not, it's child management, it's not like, it doesn't take any, it takes skill, but more in like a stop bothering me, or I'm going to direct you toward this kind of question instead of that kind of question. Like, it's manipulation, but it's the same kind of manipulation that any babysitter uses.
Yeah, if she thinks that everyone's going to be that easy, then she's in for a rude awakening.
Exactly, and she clearly doesn't, because she doesn't connect those things, I don't think.
Well, though she does kind of implicitly compare her own ability to control lords to Maya Stones at the beginning, though, and that is in reference to Sweet Robin, so I'm not reading into that too much, but she does specifically call him a lord, not a child.
I mean, yeah, I'm not quite sure how old he is, about 8 or 9, because he seems to have like fairly strong grasp of the political situation in the area.
That's something that surprised me in this chapter. It did feel like very much at odds with him in the past, which was another sort of thing I was thinking about in terms of it feeling like the 5-year gap thing was part of the concern, because he felt much older. He felt less whiny. I mean, he's obviously still Robin, but he felt much less whiny. And like you say, he felt pretty savvy with the whole Herald hurting stuff.
I think he's faking it, and I'm ashamed that I haven't made this connection earlier, but he's Claudius, because he's like pretending to drool, pretending to have a limp, he's pretending to have seizures, because he knows that if he doesn't, then someone's gonna freaking try to get him out of the way. He's playing a long game.
Too late, buddy.
Wow.
Too late.
Robin's the major player in the whole thing. We were all
the ultimate.
He's gonna out little finger.
Well, I think that was what confused me. Not confused me. That was part of my like calculation in terms of like how long has this been from the last time we saw Sansa, and where is it in the rest of the story? Because, like I said, like Sansa felt a teeny bit younger to me, but he definitely, I agree, felt more composed, more communicable. Like he was having a tantrum a little bit, but it wasn't like.
He's afraid. He's like, I think he's trying to kill me. He wants me out of the way so he can have the veil. Like, a stupid kid doesn't
clearly unfounded.
Put that into words.
Yeah. No, silly boy.
It says he's 6 at the beginning of Game of Thrones, so I guess he's about 8 now, maybe.
because we don't know how much time has actually gone by.
Because we don't know how there are years in this world, because they don't go by seasons and it doesn't have it, whatever.
Yeah, has it
George,
ever
just
been
give us the
established?
weeks already. Just give them.
Well, I think Sansa is 11 at the beginning, and she's about 13 now, so about 2 years.
Yeah, it seems to be
Yeah.
like around 2 years
Wow.
agreed upon.
So it took them 2 years to get to Nestor Royce's place.
Yep.
Or do you mean the whole book?
Oh, no,
Yeah,
the whole
the
book. I didn't mean like
okay,
the selection.
okay.
It's a long way down from the
she's
Irie.
He's 6 at the beginning of a Game of Thrones, yeah.
So anyway, we good on Sweet Robin? Any more thoughts?
Nah.
No.
It's got nice hair.
It's just to remind
Really
us
nice
that he's
hair.
still there. He's a mess.
I think he's going to be such a mess because he's got this weird Oedipus complex where he sort of like, he likes Sansa because she reminds him of his mother, but also he wants to wed her and be with her, so he's going to be
Yeah.
pretty messed up later in life if he lives that long.
And he's old enough, I guess, to understand that like sleeping in his bed could lead to pregnancy. I guess.
Yeah, he doesn't know what the words are, but he knows it's something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's
Um,
her sort of Tully features that are like probably turning him on because it looks like his mother.
Yeah.
See, if
Maybe-
you dig deep enough, you can find something horrible even in this chapter.
It's not so much at the edges
So
anymore.
gross. So gross.
Well, I mean, that's another point. And for the show, they did a really good job with the casting for the Tullys. I mean, with Catelyn, Lysa, and Edmure, it's like oh, they could all be siblings. Yeah, sure. And then when you saw Lysa and Sansa together again in the Eyrie last season, it was really awesome. You know, it was like, oh yeah, that's right, that's her aunt. That's just sorry, that was random. Okay.
Well, so then what happens is basically Miranda comes and not Miranda, Maya Stone is like, hey, there's lords coming. I don't know what to do. So Sansa.
Hi, there's lords coming.
The best summary.
So Greg's gonna play Maya when we do the full castle
Oh,
recording.
damn
of
it.
Please do it.
Trapped.
And Sansa basically, goes through. She does one of, I guess, I think George does that sometimes. Like has a character walk through a place and has them like absorb everything that's going on. But that happens. She rescues Nope, I keep mixing them up. Miranda Royce from her would-be disgusting suitors. Which was very deftly done, and I was like, yeah, wing woman, awesome. Because some things don't change. And yeah, Miranda is awesome. And it's also interesting because I think I remember at the end of Feast for Crows, Sansa was a little bit more, like she liked Miranda, but they definitely weren't like buddies. And now it's like, oh no, we're friends. We're like,
It's been 2 years.
Yeah, and she thought Miranda was trying to suss out information. He's like, she's not going to get any secrets from me. Like, I like you, but you're not getting any secrets. But here, they're like best friends. Yeah, it's
Mhm.
awesome.
Yeah, I like it. I'm happy.
It reminded
Miranda's
me a little
making-
bit of Asha's arc from the dance when she and which of the
Carl the maid.
Carl?
the daughters there. Not Carl.
Oh,
the
Abby.
Glover?
The Mormont.
No.
yeah,
Lady.
Alice,
one of the
Alice Mormont.
Alicent Mormont, how she and Elle they're kind of thrown together and by the end of Asha's chapter she's thinking of her as Allie. So it's like how in adversity these women grow close together. That's it. That's all I got.
I agree.
I'm sorry,
Making
like my brain
connections.
was just derailing.
So almost like Stockholm syndrome, or
No, just I think showing the power of female friendship and how these women, like, they're told all their lives that they're going to be able to rely on their husbands or their fathers or on noble knights, and growing up in this war situation, these girls have learned that that's not the case, and they've got each other, and that's it.
yeah.
They're sort of bonded by a feeling of vulnerability. So, like, let's stick together
Yes.
and have each other's backs, which is cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting that you point out that connection because I kind of, it made me realize that it's a very kind of rare thing in the books to have this sort of one-on-one lady interaction to like this just purely like friendship kind of thing in a very honest sense. And it made me realize like how much I had liked that in the books, and I'm glad we got more of it because like the Asha chapters and Dance are probably my favorites in that book, and I thought this one was a really cool thing of that.
And it's also such a contrast from the last time we saw Sansa have a friend, because the last time we saw Sansa have a friend, that was what's her name, poor Jane Poole, and
Poor Jane, yeah.
Yeah, and Sansa was still very much in the like lady, I mean they were friends, but like it was a little not to use this word catty in terms of like girls, but like Sansa was the boss in that situation.
Yeah. It did feel very standoffish, sort of.
They weren't equals.
Right, exactly. And Miranda is just her friend. Yeah. Actually, I guess Sansa would be under Miranda, right? Or below Miranda.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the difference between real power and, sort of the illusion of power, I suppose. Mm-hmm. Because it seems like Sansa has real power, as she's more or less one of the people running the show with Littlefinger, and Miranda should have power as a noble lady.
Yeah. In terms of bloodlines, Miranda has more power, but obviously Sansa is in such a good position because her father is Lord Paramount, so it's kind of it's a temporal sort of power, but it's there.
I felt like it was a bit strange and kind of not what I'm used to, that they all kind of treated her sort of in a very courteous way, but I think that definitely partially is the fact that she is Littlefinger's daughter and doesn't want to they don't want to piss him off. I think part of it is that she's so pretty, I guess. I felt like that was another reason why people seem to hold her in such high regard, I guess. But yeah, it was kind of strange that they had this much, except for Harry, everyone else didn't treat her like a bastard at all.
Well, I mean, noble bastards, are they often treated like horribly? It seems like a lot of the bastards that we get
context, I guess.
It's more like a prejudice thing. Like if you want to hurt someone that's a bastard, that's what you use against them. But in general, they're not treated like, because they're not a threat, so people don't sort of treat them too bad. But they're above small folk. Obviously, they have sort of noble blood in them. So I don't think they're necessarily, as a rule, mistreated. It's more just a thing that they get lashed against them.
Yeah, I guess John was, but it was the circumstances he was in that made him be treated poorly by people.
Catelyn
Well, Catelyn and also the people at the wall, but it's because they saw him as up-jumped, sort of like he doesn't know his place.
Yeah, that was
sort of a nebulous middle place between noble and peasant, where they could go, depending on their fathers or whoever's in charge, they could be treated like shitty small folk, or they could be treated like nobles. It just depends on where they're at. It's a weird nebulous place in that society.
There's also the I think the idea of like a community, like the smaller the community, the higher, or like the more, because the more it will matter what that person is actually like, as opposed to what their status is, which is maybe part of like what is worrying Sansa, because like the more people who come in, the more people she is just Elaine Stone to, as opposed to Elaine Stone, she's awesome and she takes care of the Lord, and
Yeah, there is a nice sense of community in the Vale. Like people are sort of getting along in a weird way that you don't see in King's Landing, where everyone is trying to stab each other on the back. Where it's here, it's like the Vale has got this sort of isolationism for the past couple of years, so they sort of all get along.
Oh, I think it's kind of superficial. I think that there's definitely tensions boiling, for sure.
I mean, obviously for Littlefinger, but like that's why.
Yeah, maybe not among each other unless they're working for Littlefinger.
Well,
I guess.
That's why they all want to be winged knights, because they haven't been tested in battle, but like want to now.
Well, the way for a person to gain status, or maybe not necessarily status, but to gain a good reputation is through arms, through battle, and they haven't had a chance to do that.
Right.
Because they've been kept out of the
war. And that's
why
like this tourney is like the ultimate thing, and why everyone came, right?
Yeah, and they haven't necessarily been sort of embittered by war like a lot of the other regions. But it is a really smart way of uniting the people, like having the idea of a tournament. There's all these, high-ranking nobles and knights coming together to sort of fight on your terms, and the reward is that they come into your service, like they're on your payroll. So it's a good way for Littlefinger to get some influence over them, and maybe even potentially as hostages if things go bad.
Did anybody else find it weird that Robin's making his own Kingsguard? Doesn't that seem like almost challenging to the king?
Yeah, I kind of got that sense as well. I don't know how much we can say about it, but I did have that feeling like, wait, no, you're not the king. You're not supposed to have one of those.
Well, it's not called a Kingsguard. It's just called Winged Knights.
Sure. But yeah, it kind of is a direct, maybe not, maybe it wouldn't be read this way, but it's sort of like I have this too kind of thing.
There's 8, not 7. It's got nothing to do with the Kingsgrave.
With one more, I got more presents than you.
Makes it better.
Well, also keep in mind that this is the end of a very long conflict, and even though there's probably another big one coming, they don't know that yet. So things are really reshuffling, and maybe maybe the Vale is now thinking, well, maybe we're just going to do our own thing forever because we have been now for a while.
The Vale is in a very strong position also because they got that bloody gate.
Yeah, and
the harvests.
Yeah, and the harvest, if we can jump to that.
Yeah, so while Miranda and Sansa are walking around the yard, they kind of find a lot of people, sparring, and it's like, hey, we're all gonna fight and be in the Wingguard men thing nights, and one of the people there is Sir Shadrach, the Mad Mouse, who is apparently a former companion of Brienne's, and may know more than is good for everyone else.
Just to clarify, is he one of the 2 hedge knights that she hung out with when it was the old fat guy? Those were different.
No, remember? He was the competent one.
He was protecting some merchant. And he's like, "Oh, I'm also looking for this girl."
Okay, but that was on her same journey.
Wink.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I have a question. In the hedge mouse, or the hedge mouse,
Oh.
the hedge knight.
Sorry,
There
I
was.
want to read the hedge mouse.
Wasn't there a knight
he might know who Sansa? I'm sorry. I just had like a brainstorm. Go ahead.
No, go.
Well,
I was gonna say that-
I'm sorry.
I've got the passage here.
Yeah.
Read it.
So this is the first chapter, I think, when Brienne is going to Duskendale and she runs into this knight escorting this merchant, and he says, "Oh, I doubt that, but it may be that you and I share a quest. A little lost sister, is it, with blue eyes and auburn hair?" He laughed again. "You are not the only hunter in the woods. I seek for Sansa Stark as well." Brienne kept her face a mask to hide her dismay. "Who is this Sansa Stark, and why do you seek her?" "For love, why else?" She furrowed her brow. "Love? Aye, love of gold. Unlike your good Sir Creighton, I did fight upon the Blackwater, but on the losing side. My ransom ruined me. You know who Varys is, I trust. The eunuch has offered me a plump bag of gold for this girl you've never heard of. I am not a greedy man. If some oversized wench would help me find this naughty child, I would split the spider's coin with her." And then in this chapter, when Sansa bumps into her, he says, "A good melee is all a hedge knight can hope for, unless he stumbles on a bag of dragons. And that's not likely to happen, is it?"
Oh, he knows. He knows.
Oh,
Among the stone.
But in the hedge knight,
never mind that.
wasn't there a professional tourney knight that would always beat a few rich guys and take their money and then lose?
Oh, the
Snail?
snail?
The snail.
Oh,
yeah.
he was the snail. Okay, I was thinking he was
Snail's
the
good, too.
mouse. I knew it was
George, what are
something-
you doing to us? What are you doing?
Okay, that clears that up. I thought I was thinking it might have a relation to that, but it's the snail.
How did he
Never
get
mind.
here? It's like 100 years in the future.
The
Well, that's
biggest
what I was thinking.
conspiracy of
I was
all.
trying to remember where that character came from, and I remember it was from the Hedge Knight. And I was like, oh, well, maybe it's a descendant of his or something.
That guy was awesome, by the way. Let's not talk about it, but that guy was
Yeah,
hilarious.
he was just all
extorting
about
money.
business.
Yeah.
Having a snail as your sigil is so badass.
So yeah, so that's definitely, I think, a seed planted for future development / exploitation. Yeah, it's definitely not a coincidence that.
But I'm with you. I completely forgot. I couldn't even remember this character. I just saw someone shouting "Mad Mouse" on like a forum, and I'm like, oh, what are they talking about? Apparently, because you meet so many characters in Brienne's chapters. Just
How do you miss the
constantly.
Mad
Yeah.
Mouse though? He's so awesome.
He
Yeah,
is cool, but I just couldn't remember that chapter. Like, yeah.
But that's the great thing about George's writing, though. He does that all the time. Like the second time you read Game of Thrones, you pick up on so much more than the first time.
Mm-hmm. It's still like
such a
kind of scares me. It's like these characters are off having stories that, like, I don't know if he knows all the details of, but he knows when they're popping back into the main narrative and what they've been doing in the meantime, and that's affected stuff. And it's like, how are you that smart? That's kind of scary.
One question is whether Varys has issued this on behalf of himself, like the Aegon conspiracy, or whether he's issued it on behalf of like Cersei and the Crown to track down Sansa. Because if it's like if it's on behalf of Cersei, then like he's not going to have anyone to collect the ransom from because Varys is gone by this point.
But he doesn't.
Still, I'm pretty sure Cersei would be happy to give her a bag of gold to get Sansa back.
So did Cersei ever say anything about telling Varys to do this in Feast? Did she bring it up?
I can't remember. I assume she just said, make sure Sansa's tracked down. So maybe he said, all right, I'm going to hire a bunch of hedge.
Yeah, I think that's him taking action on that request. Like, I have to think this had come from Cersei, because she would want to do something about it, right? She'd want to deal with it.
Probably, yeah. Yeah.
She might not give the person a bag of gold because she's Cersei, but yeah.
But you'd think it'd be more like the way she issues the Tyrion thing, like bring me a dwarf's head. Wouldn't she just issue that same thing? Like, not bring me Sansa's head, but bring me Sansa and you get like 100,000 dragons or whatever. Like, why do this subterfuge sort of thing? I guess maybe because Sansa's in hiding, so you need someone
be halfway intelligent about it?
Yeah.
Not really her style.
Yeah.
Cersei slam.
Low hanging fruit, though. Let's be honest. And then so after we get the mouse, Harry arrives and is every bit the asshole we were led to believe. But yeah, again, Sansa's really like, she wants to make this work. You know, she's really into this idea that she's going to marry this guy. I don't remember. Somebody clarify this for me. Why would Lady Anya agree to this match with Littlefinger's bastard daughter and the heir?
Because he bought her debt.
Oh, right. There you go.
Anya?
Yeah, I think he gave her just a huge dowry for,
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah.
And yeah, so he's super nasty to her, and she's affected by that, which is sad and sweet.
She doesn't like that.
And it was so funny because like this whole time she was like, can't find Petyr, and I'm like, oh my god, something horrible has happened. Like he's
just
either
dead.
he's dead or
with
like
Sweet Robin like looming over him with a dagger. Yeah.
Got it.
Or so something horrible is gonna happen. But she does find him in the crypts, right? The crypt, like whatever, like the cellar place, the cold place.
The cellar,
I was in the car wash, so. And he's like, yep. He like basically gives her a pep talk about this whole like seducing Harry the heir, and tells her what to do. And then Sansa just like literally goes and just kicks ass and does it. But first there's tapestries, which are apparently important. Is that a thing?
We get two little bits of information here. One is that Littlefinger is hoarding grain from the other kingdoms or the free cities. Like Zach said, it's probably just to raise the prices, but he might be like stocking up for winter, which is clever. And the other bit is that these tapestries that apparently, like, there are two sentences that appear in A Feast for Crows. One that Cersei says, Littlefinger requested these tapestries that were Robert's, so I sent them off to him. And then a couple of chapters later, Littlefinger says they arrived. And, like, here we find them, I guess. But it is a sort of strangely specific detail to include in the text. But here they are.
The theory, even before this chapter, was that he was like smuggling something with them. But it kind of there's other things obviously going on with the whole like buying or talking about the Royce. Yeah, the Royce is like selling all this stuff for silver. That's a completely separate sort of thing, I think.
Yeah, so he gives it to the Royces, and they're really happy with it. So maybe that's the extent of the deal.
Oh, he gives it to Nestor Royce, but it's Bronze Yohn Royce that is selling his crops.
Right. Okay. So maybe just to make the declarants happy. Do we have any theories about it? Like, I couldn't think of any. Like maybe. Like Stannis, maybe like if he has Robert's tapestry, he could use that to like as a gift to Stannis or something. I guess Stannis doesn't really like what Robert, so it wouldn't help that much.
I have a theory
already given them.
that it doesn't mean anything. That's my theory.
Nestor just really likes tapestries.
Just likes his tapestry.
He's giving them away. I mean,
he got a great deal on them. The garage sale.
He seems to be pretty happy with them. He's like, guys, look what I got. Look what I got.
Yeah.
Like the most, maybe he might have smuggled something out with it, and then that might be a significant thing.
It's just like because
themselves aren't.
we mentioned the Mad Mouse, like that's another specific detail that sort of bore fruit. So why was this included in the text? Was it just a bit of flavor, or is there something like you feel like Littlefinger doesn't do anything without a specific purpose in mind?
But he's got to do some things without a specific purpose in mind. Otherwise, it'd just be tiring.
But I think I just wanted to stay on Littlefinger for a minute and see. Does anyone have any speculation about what his final end game is at this point?
Well, it seems Does he want the
Temple
Iron Throne?
well.
I guess is the question. Is there a scenario where he could possibly get the Iron Throne, or is he just going to have to settle for the power
I
behind
agree.
the throne?
I've never thought that Littlefinger wants to be king. I think he wants to be the person behind the throne.
Exactly, yeah. He doesn't want the target painted on him. He wants to be the person pulling the strings behind stage.
Wants chaos.
So
well, he wants
ladder.
chaos, and then he wants perfect order.
Yeah, he wants a chaos ladder.
It was actually so funny.
So who does he want on the throne? Would
Maybe
be the next
Sansa.
question then. But Sansa can't sit there on the throne. She could marry someone.
Well, yeah.
Who would she marry? Do you think
Actually-
Harry's heir to sit the Iron Throne?
But then why would he the whole Joffrey thing, that's weird then. Because, she was a lot closer to sitting on the Iron Throne then.
I honestly don't
next
think he's
to the
thinking that far ahead at this point. Maybe I'm underestimating the mighty genius of Littlefinger, but I think it really is just kind of taking steps at a time, consolidating a lot of power. He's going to have the Riverlands, the Eyrie, and the North, and then he'll pick someone once he has all that power behind him.
Yeah, he's taking a one rung at a time.
Yeah, one rung at a time. That chaos ladder.
I do think that it's very plausible that he just wants to continue to be the power behind the throne. Do you guys remember in Sansa's last chapter in Feast, how he says, he's getting really grandiose, and he's like, and when, you walk into the sept and you're wearing your maiden's cloak with the Stark wolf on it, and we're going to, whip off your veil, and everyone's going to see your red hair, and then everyone's going to immediately pledge to you it seems like maybe he wants to put Sansa on the throne.
I mean,
I don't want her. I don't think she can get on the Iron Throne, but maybe Queen in the North, like a united Vale North Riverlands alliance thing, because she's got heaps of support with the and she's got the Vale, and she's like a union between Harding and Sansa might be bringing the North into the fold. I guess, yeah.
Yeah, clearly she's going to be a power player. I don't know if she's going to be the ruler of Westeros necessarily, but clearly a huge force.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because guys, we actually we have Nadia.
Nadia.
Yeah.
Oh, no way, Nadia!
I know.
Cool.
Hang on, is she here? I tried to add her.
I see the icon. I've never podcasted with Nadia before.
I've never.
You youngins.
I know.
Sweet summer children.
I know.
Oh, she's gone.
Way to tease.
Nope. The dream died before it.
Wait, there she is.
Oh, hang on. Nadia.
Nadia.
False spring.
Hello? Yeah, I'm here.
Hey, Nadia.
Oh my god.
Podcasting royalty.
It's been so long. I'm almost nervous.
Not as nervous as us.
No, not at all.
This is exciting.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, well, we've all chopped our hair off, dyed it pink, and then. How are you?
I'm good. Just crazy busy.
I'll bet. So do you wanna give us a lemon cake rating for the chapter?
I was just so excited about it. I would give it 10 if I could. I'm not even thinking about the quality of the chapter. I'm just so excited to have something from Windsor Printer.
Well, so we were discussing what were we discussing? Petyr.
Littlefinger.
Yeah, we were going into kind of what his end game is, and kind of if we see any hints of that in this chapter. I don't know. Any other thoughts on that, guys?
I think it shows George's strength that we're not seeing any clear, end to it. I think I like it that it's completely up in the air.
Yeah,
I'm sort of interested about what his plans are for Sansa, whether she is just like a pawn in his master plan, or whether she is like the end game. He wants to seduce her or something with all his power. I get a kind of Great Gatsby kind of vibe from Littlefinger. He had this one love and he tried to take over the world and become the most powerful man in the world to impress her or something, and now he's trying to do it to a daughter.
I think he wants to marry her, to be honest. I think that might be one of his end games, this way of getting Catelyn in the end.
Agreed.
See, he's also a good adapter, though, so I like to think that whatever his plan was when he first spoke to her at, the Hands tourney has changed and evolved to where he is now. Because, if we've learned anything from these books is that planning doesn't always hold up to what you think is going to happen. So he's probably evolved his master plan over the course of the books.
Yeah,
that's true. But I feel like it's been kind of pounded in that she / Catelyn is that emotional weakness for him. And this is maybe just me desperately wanting this to happen, but I really, really think that she's his downfall, and I really think that that's because he.
I hope so.
I don't think he is as clinical as he thinks he is.
Well, this is the first chapter where we get him literally taking orders from Sansa, or at least taking her ideas and making them into, weaving them into his plan. So that could definitely backfire him if he gets too deep into that.
Do you guys get a sense that she's like attracted to him? Like, because there's a line later where she's teasing Harry, and she's like, I can't wait to like, I can't wait to like laugh about this with Peter later. I don't know.
Well, it's just more because he's the only person that she can be completely honest with, because maybe.
Right.
But like she likes their sort of witty sort of banter. Sorry.
No, sorry. Do not like that taste.
I don't want it. I'm just saying like that's what I picked up on.
I've never got the feeling that she was kind of flirty with him or interested in being flirty with him. It was more like just that he doesn't give a creepy vibe off to her, it seems like he should, or we think he should.
Because I think more than ruling the world, his like ultimate prize would be to like for her to willingly sleep with him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, what I wanted to say was that I think Littlefinger's plans and this weak spot he has for for Catelyn / Sansa they're interconnected, but they're not they're not the exact same thing. And that he has this idea of like moving Sansa up in the world, but I can't imagine him being allowed to become another man's wife, like sleeping with another man, if he can stop it.
Even if he doesn't let her sleep with anyone else, then he doesn't get any legitimacy. Like somebody just mentioned, he could like kill off her husband and then take over. But then she would need to have a child at least who would have legitimacy to the throne. So then killing off her husband before anything happens isn't significant then for him, at least.
I feel like he's willing, not happy about it, but he's willing to sacrifice like Sansa's virginity or whatever to get her in the end.
Maybe. It's kind of hard to know.
Like, get her, like sleep with her, marry her, have her be his adoring wife.
He's also managed to deceive himself into thinking that he took Catelyn's virginity, so he might be able to convince himself of any number of things as he needs to.
Well, I didn't think he can.
Yeah,
I think
he
legitimately
he honestly thinks he did.
Yeah,
I don't know. He's a young boy then. He's more experienced now.
I thought it was something he told himself, and it got to the point where the lie became the truth for him.
But in terms of Sansa, I'm thinking right now that he is he's trying to convince himself that it's not going to be a problem if she marries Harry and whatever happens there. I think that the question will be moving forward if he can accept that when it actually happens. I don't think he's like planning to subvert that consciously, but maybe he'll have a change of heart because of how he feels about her.
Well, he may not actually love her because he says, like, I've only ever loved one woman, only Cat. So maybe it's more of this weird sort of incestual sort of daughter thing. Like he sees her as Cat's daughter, so he has to take care of her, but he's also creepily attracted to her and things. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure if the marriage alliance is important to him. I think he just sees that as a political thing.
I'm fairly certain he sees her as Cat.
I agree.
Maybe, yeah, maybe.
I think so, too.
I'd love it if he got a chance to meet Lady Stoneheart. That would make me really happy.
Yes.
I mean, if anything's going to be his untimely demise, that would be pretty, I don't know, kind of fitting.
I'm thinking maybe Sansa will find out, because we get a mention of Ned Stark in this chapter. Maybe that'll be the thing that sets her off, that she realizes that he helped kill Ned, and she'll kill him.
Well, I mean, I guess.
Well, here's hoping.
Moving forward, I guess, like on that note, I think it is telling that we have no idea what's going on, really.
Exactly, yeah.
I feel like we will look back on I don't know, maybe not in this chapter, but probably the next one, and be like, oh, starting to see those little things. And, so what happens next, I guess, is really the climax of the chapter. Where Sansa, like I said, just performs to perfection and flirts with every man in the room except for Harry the Heir, or allows them to flirt with her, really. And it's just so interesting to see her, because she was so like uncertain throughout the chapter, in her head, like repeating like courtesy is a lady's armor, which was her mantra, back at her weakest point. And then, she just steps into this role flawlessly. And just like Littlefinger says, she can't. Harry can't stand it. So clearly he's a territorial asshole. And I think my favorite thing was that, like, I was really wondering, like, what Sansa was going to say to him. And then, like, calling him out, like, so politely on his bastard children was, like, I was like, oh, that is super gutsy, and I love it.
Yeah, she's letting him know that she's not charmed. She's like, you don't fool me. I see you. I'm going to take you as you are, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
She's putting him on the back foot, yeah.
Yeah, and, like, you're ridiculous. Like, you think it's fun that you, like, sleep with all these women. I think it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Also, she's making friends, and
do you
she's...
think there are...
Yeah, I mean, like...
Oh, go ahead, sir.
I was just saying, do you think there are any chapters between the last Sansa chapter in Feast for Crows and this one? Because it seems like there's a drastic change in Sansa's personality.
I think we thought possibly that the original 2 or 5 year gap that was supposed to happen in between the books may have played a part in the differences in the characters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, we get an incident at least when they decide to organize the tourney. So at least a fair, maybe even a couple of months has passed that she's been hanging out with Miranda, who she meets at the end of the last chapter of Feast for Crows. So it might have been a few months, which is probably enough time for her to feel comfortable in her own skin.
A certain amount of time.
Yeah, and that doesn't necessarily mean that there's a chapter in between. That could have just been the next time we see her,
Yeah, I think it will be fascinating to ultimately compare.
To answer the original question, I don't think there is another chapter.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, I don't need one.
Final.
I'm fine.
Time, yes,
Yeah, it's not like Dany and Dance where you have to see every little boring thing that happens.
Yeah.
Or Brienne in Feast for
like,
Crows,
okay.
where you have to meet every person she meets.
Hey, if
But
we
they
didn't
come
meet
back
the
later.
Mad Mouse, we wouldn't
Mouse.
have liked him
Yeah.
now, so shut up about that.
Yeah.
But I was just going to say that in the final version, all they really have to do is for Sansa to be like, she had been there for X number of months and it had been nice. Like they can, hopefully Anne will insert something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's all we would really need to resolve that issue.
Yeah, and so any thoughts on Sansa, kicking ass and taking Saffron?
Well, I just liked how she like was very diplomatic with. I mean, obviously not Harry because she that's the long game. But when she was like helping Sir Wallace out with his stutter by talking, finding words around it and not responding to it, like these are things that these people will remember when she's revealed. Because I always thought like these people don't have a reason to stand behind her if hey, Aunt Sansa, you're with me now. Even if she's just married to Sir Harry, like they would need a personal connection, and she's giving them those reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because a lot of people are just like, the only reason he's around is because, all this other stuff, like they don't see him as being anything amazing or worthwhile on his own.
Yeah.
Sansa's charming everyone.
Yeah, she's sort of like playing the Marjorie role where Joffrey isn't much, but she's making them get the common people or the noble people on their side. They're getting into this union, into the idea of it.
And impressively, she's doing that without the resources Marjorie has.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, it's charming, I think. That's what.
Yeah, but Marjorie also had the Tyrell money to kind of bolster her case.
This is weird, but did anyone else think of the scene in Titanic where Rose goes down to third class and dances with all the Irish people and they all love her? Like, that's what I remembered when I thought of this, when I read this the first time.
I have never watched Titanic on principle.
Yeah, Sansa needs to find all the Irish people in the back room. Dance with them.
So that is a badge of honor, sir. Many of us were made to sit through that movie by our friends who were obsessed with it during the time.
Yeah,
I think that's what he's saying. Like, I've seen Titanic by accident many times. Like,
you youngins, come on. I had the freaking double VHS of Titanic. I waited outside Blockbuster for it.
Yeah, I like Titanic.
I remember the summer.
But I didn't get that feeling because she was dancing with the lords and the knights.
Yeah, but she was winning them over. All right.
Yeah, anyway. But the knights was super creepy.
Mm-hmm.
Especially those.
Sir Shut and Sir
What were their names? Yeah, Shit and whatever.
The old fat guy and the pimply kid, right? That's how I recognize him.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
The fat and shit.
It's just this absolute. Yeah.
The way I picture the point, sorry, Julia, just it just occurred to me. It's hard to tell, like when people are actually threatening, or if they're just, either young and jerky, or just jerky but aren't gonna, attack you in this world. Like
it's also
rape culture.
They're just obsessed with breasts.
Right. but you know, I mean, you can do that and not be a rapist, you know.
So speaking of characters not maybe being as dickish as they appear, some people were trying to make the case in the forums that Harold Harding wasn't really as much of a dick as maybe he came across. It was more the fact that he was kind of conned into this and had no say, and that was kind of why he was acting so badly to Sansa.
I can see that.
I sort of agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
The stuff with the philandering and the other people, like that's kind of bad, obviously. But
yeah, she was really hot when I slept with her, but then she got fat, so dump that.
Yeah, that was pretty terrible.
Yeah. That was the line. Because I think you can make a reasonable argument of being like, you know, well, you know, just like Sansa didn't want to be pushed into a marriage, he doesn't want to either. But I don't think we're meant to get a particularly favorable impression of him right now.
Sure, but on the Westeros barometer of bad people, I think he's probably not bad. Maybe he's worse than he appears. Maybe.
But then again, it has to be like rescaled for the atmosphere in the Eyrie right now, which is like not at war. And
true.
I liked what UFL Gator wrote. He was talking about Harry, and he said that, like many of the young characters in the story, Harry hasn't come to terms with the idea that he's a pawn in someone else's game. His inability to hide his frustrations makes it unlikely that he's even capable of planning any subterfuge. Also, the way he reacts to Elaine negging him implies that his arrogance has more to do with his youth and naivety than his highborn blood. He even blushes in embarrassment at one point. If Sansa tried that with Joffrey, things would have turned out quite differently. So I think he's more just a sort of sulky teenager. I don't think he's necessarily malicious or anything. Just sort of self-centered and stupid.
Yeah,
and he got taken down a peg, so that's what he deserved.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and Sansa does neg him. That's hilarious.
Bud. Does that mean she's read the what was that book that came out that all the douchebags bought? The the rules of the game or something.
Ooh.
Yeah.
No. She has Littlefinger.
Oh yeah, the game.
Yeah,
the game.
Sansa's red pilled. Well, I just wanted to quickly say the way I pictured the dance scene would be like Pride and Prejudice style, with like everyone's like doing these proper dances, but like the men and women are just like trading these like awful verbal barbs while like maintaining like really intense eye contact, and like that whole Jane Austen sort of eye fucking thing. So that's
too,
the way.
It felt very not A Song of Ice and Fire to me. I was like, I
yeah,
thought it wasn't a different story.
Most people
don't
know that Jane Austen invented the term "eye fucking." It was in the book.
Anyway. And then she ran one finger down his cheek, which wow.
Yeah.
You guys all know what I'm talking about.
It kind of goes back to, I think, that comment about I can't wait to tell, you know, Petyr about this, which is, I think, you know, part of this, like I'm so proud of her for like being so self-possessed and doing all of it, but I still think part of it for her isn't real yet. You know, I think it's still an act. And it's like, oh, I'm going to tell Dad what cool move I did in karate today, today in societal manipulation, whatever. So
well, it's almost like she's coming to terms with she's got these kind of myths about what marriage and courtship and romance is, and she's sort of shed those, but there is something to be gained, some kind of like to and fro attraction of courtship. Like, it's not the same as what she thought her fairy tales were. It's more manipulatory and political, but she can still derive some fun from it, as well as sort of, you know, moving towards her actual goals.
Mm-hmm. What else was there in the chapter?
That was pretty much it.
Yeah.
Well, what was her final comment? She said, you may not, it is promised to another. And she was not sure who yet, but she knew she would find someone, which could be just her.
That's what Littlefinger told her to do, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, shit.
I read it as she's like thinking on her feet, like, you know, she has to keep sort of ranking this guy around, like, oh, I've already promised it to someone, hair flip. Oh crap, I have to find someone to promise it to. So I just that just made me laugh.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I kind of got like a coy vibe from it, you know, like she's like, I'll find someone.
Yeah, she's super aware of how charming and desirable she is. She can just get anyone she wants.
Mm-hmm.
I hope she gives it to Lothar Brune.
Yeah, I liked how he showed up and he had a nice little line about how much of a dick Harry was.
Yeah, and she hugs him. Yeah.
But, you know, even then when she says that and Littlefinger's basically like, well, the world's a horrible place, honey. And it's like that's not the right answer. I don't know. That just reminded me of why I hate Littlefinger so much. You know, just like that whole like, well, you just have to go with it, and you know.
Well, they're in Westeros.
I don't know.
Well, you sort of do.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't change the world, but you can change how you respond to it, and like don't have any illusions about the world.
But I don't know. It just reminds me of so many times in my life as a girl, as a woman, when something creepy or like borderline dangerous happens to me, and I'm just told, oh, that's just the way things are, and it's like, well, it fucking shouldn't be. Okay.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
For sure, yeah.
But so Sansa also does a lot of thinking about the North in this chapter, and I did think that was significant, but I wasn't really sure what to say about it. So did anyone else have more cogent thoughts?
I'll say something real quick.
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
Yeah,
Do you have a cogent thought to offer, Matt?
We're at an impasse.
Cogent thought versus cogent thought. Fight.
So she calls herself Elaine a lot, and though she's like, my real father died, or my real father, Eddard Stark, and then she says something about like Robb, how he's a traitor, but even if he was a traitor, he died a king. And then when they're riding towards the portcullis, she's like, oh, I used to run like this with like Jane Poole with Arya underfoot.
Mm-hmm.
It just seemed like there was a lot of times where she forgot herself but remembered Sansa. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, man.
Well,
I get it.
I've always sort of wondered. I always think back to the sequence with the snow castle, like when she's building it at the end of a Storm of Swords, and I always wonder, like, what does that mean? Is she like pining for home, and is it sort of foreshadowing her wanting to go home and resurrecting Winterfell, or is it like her coming to terms with the destruction of Winterfell and the deaths of her family, and like saying goodbye to Winterfell, and she's Elaine now, and she has to put that part of her away? But in this chapter, you do get a lot of references to this, like Eddard and Robb and Arya running after them, so it feels like maybe that's what she's coming to want. Like she wants to return to the North and claim Winterfell and become a ruler and all that. And that's what her ultimate goal is. So that kind of encouraged me that she isn't just part of Littlefinger's plan. She wants her own things. And that's a big part of it, that sort of nostalgia for the North.
Well, to me, it seemed to imply the passage of time that she was able, we talked about how long has it been since we last seen her. The fact that she can look back at these things with joy, that she's not overcome by, the terrible emotions that she has been previously when she thinks about her father or her brother, that seemed to imply to me that possibly there has been some kind of time passage.
Yeah, it's not like this ache. She can derive pleasure from it.
Yeah, there's perspective there. There's maturity. There's been a certain amount of healing. Yeah, like I said at the beginning of our recording here, that she has incorporated the useful things and her experiences into her personality, and is just becoming. Well, we don't know what she's becoming, but just her experiences have shaped her in sad but also awesome ways.
Yeah, and also the Elaine part of her and the Sansa part of her are less in conflict. They're sort of merging together more peacefully, I guess.
Yeah, and I think that she'll be able to throw off Elaine pretty quickly when she has to.
Yeah, it's kind of the opposite of what Arya's going through. Like every time Eddard pops up, like she has to push it down, and it seems like Sansa's kind of just like you said, it is merging and accepting, but it's not. She's not fighting against it. It's almost she's cherishing the memory and like that's okay. Not like forget about it. It'll come in later. Like she's keeping both of them together at the same time.
The Arya is tethering herself to her identity with the warging still, so she's not fully sort of like
that's less
she's
conscious,
not. She's consciously trying,
Yeah,
or maybe
she's not conscious of it.
Sure.
She keeps Needle around.
She keeps Needle. Yeah.
Well, you can't get rid of Needle. It's an awesome sword.
Well, she's supposed to, but she
I
keeps
know.
it anyway.
Rules is rules.
Well, the other thing about Sansa, and this was I remember way back in Feast, is she's running out of the special hair dye, and that I know that for sure is going to mean something. It wasn't mentioned this time, but I remember that very distinctly from one of her last chapters, that she was almost out of the hair dye that's keeping her, from being outed as who she really is. Does anyone else remember that?
But surely Littlefinger can just order more. I mean, that was months ago.
Just buy some.
Yeah, I assume that stock of hair dye is finished, and she got new hair dye.
Don't they have FedEx?
But it's also one of those things. It's also one of those things, like the way it stood out. It's one of those things, like I remember way back in I do believe it was either Clash or Storm when Sansa is looking at the clouds when she's still stuck in King's Landing, and it's the cold morning, and she like imagines how the clouds are like a great castle and it like tumbles down. And I still come back to that, like the symbolism. What did that mean?
I like the irony of that. The idea that she could do all this work to get a new identity, and then she would suddenly run out of hair dye. But I can't see Littlefinger overlooking that.
Well, I think that if we're talking about hair dye and that being a concern, I think that we do point to the Mad Mouse in that, because he did not maybe bump into her on purpose to look at her hair more closely. So
yeah, I found the line. It's from her first chapter from A Feast, where it says, "And what must I do when the dye runs out? The wash had come from Tyrosh across the narrow sea," and then it goes on to something else. So maybe that's her saying, like, we're not getting any more. We're just going to be tough to get more.
But then,
winter.
Isn't like trade flourishing in the Vale because it hasn't gone to war yet? I mean, there's still ships coming in from Tyrosh all the time, right?
Yeah, it's hard to imagine something that Littlefinger couldn't get his hands on. I don't know. This is the type of thing where I feel like it could really go either way. It could be a linchpin, or it could be absolutely nothing. But
maybe that's the linchpin that the Mad Mouse stumbles across. He stumbles across the dye in her room or something, and
like
that's how he
finds the actual pot of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what I'm
something's
most
gonna
interested
happen
in,
there.
Yeah. Speaking of something happening, I feel like George hasn't actually set up a tourney in quite a while, and that stuff always happens, either at the tourney or
around it. Yeah.
Right.
Tourneys are always great.
Or it starts a war.
The Hound has things to do.
Tourneys are always bad in Westeros.
Well, so I'm just really interested because I do feel like there are a lot of simmering tensions, and I think there is this question of whether or not Lyn Corbray is quite Littlefinger's creature the way he believes him to be. And
that line made me wrap my head around myself. Was like, maybe he's Littlefinger's pony who's not his pawn but is his pawn but isn't his pawn. It's like, yeah, you lost me, George. But
he's a triple agent.
Well, Sansa lost herself. That was she was like, she was just kind of like, no, this is too much. This is too much.
But you know what I mean? Like, I feel like there's so many wild cards in this. Like in King's Landing, we kind of have a handle on who's important and who's gonna move stuff. But there's all these people here in the Vale, like, packed into this one event, and everyone's a wild card. I feel like, and there's so many secrets going around that, like,
I just don't see how this is all going to get wrapped up in 2 books. There's so many balls in the air.
Yeah. It does. It seems like they're introducing all these new characters in this new storyline.
Yeah.
We've only got 2 books left.
Yeah. It's
or
going
like
to be
people who are
1,600
introduced,
pages,
like,
so I still think they can do it.
It's just going to be in this
that's
massacre.
a lot of pages.
I mean, the battles
George,
don't take that long.
please.
Like, Blackwater was, 4 chapters, so we can get
Yeah,
there.
believe in George's ability to wipe out huge casts of characters.
See, I don't think
I
these
believe
people are
you.
that important, though. Like, I don't think most of them are gonna, they might die, or they might just, like, go off to their next thing. But I don't think they're that important. I just think that whatever ends up happening here is going to be hugely important.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I kind of read all these characters as showing as like a sort of return to normalcy and how people are starting to plan for the future again, not just, are we going to survive the next battle?
Well, again, it's the Vale. Like, there was never a question of surviving the next battle because they were never in it involved to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, but at the same time, it's just this feeling of, things are sort of, life is moving on. Things are moving on to, somewhere else, to other things.
It's nice to spend time here because it's like you have to remind yourself, oh yeah, the 7 kingdoms aren't always like horror and death and blood and rape. It's like this is what they're like when it's peace, and it's nice. It's not
that
always,
5% of the time. Yeah.
Abject horror. Yeah.
I mean, we're still waiting on Cersei beginning a religious war, but
that'll happen later.
It's coming.
But in terms of it being very nice here in contrast to everywhere else, I do think in speculating what's going to happen next, that things, just based on Sansa's experience in these books, things probably will go bad. I think something with the Mad Mouse is going to come to a head at some point. Maybe something with Littlefinger, something with Harry. I don't think it's all going to be rosy from here on out.
Yeah, you sort of this whole chapter you're waiting for the pin to drop and all hell to break loose. Yeah.
What's the? There's one more color. There's one more colored
We all
wedding.
have PTSD.
Right?
What?
Yeah, yellow wedding.
Really?
Yes. So who's that? Do you think that's going to be Sansa's wedding?
Wait, what?
Who said
That's
this?
just a joke. Or do you mean
Where's this coming from?
what color specifically? Green?
I don't remember, but I read that
Orange?
George said there's one more wedding coming up, a colored wedding.
Wait, what are the three
blue?
forks of the trident? What are the three forks of the trident?
Red,
Is it
green,
blue, red, and green?
Blue.
There's no purple.
So maybe the
for it.
green wedding.
There we go.
But where does the purple
Okay,
wedding
so
fit
we-
in?
Well, it's the
Does no
next
one
to the
else- does
blue
no
and
one
red.
else
yeah,
remember
sorry.
that?
It's when the yellow fork and the green fork.
I'm colorblind.
I don't know.
Does that not ring
They
any
read
bells for
colors
anybody
wrong.
else? Another wedding?
Well, wasn't there the whole thing like of like Sansa's wedding to Tyrion being called like the silver wedding, and then or I don't know.
Maybe Aegon
Let's go
and
get our
Arianne
pink
or something.
splotches.
This is eggshell pink. No, but I do think that some relationship thing is going to change majorly for Sansa, and I don't know. It's all very interesting, like where they're gonna go. Oh damn it! I want this book.
We're that much
Really?
closer.
Huh.
I mean, I was on the fence for a while, but now I'm like, no. Yeah.
All right, I'll read it.
You got me.
Damn you, George.
All right. So thank you for listening and being spoiled. You can certainly share your thoughts on the Vassals of Kingsgrave forum on the Podcast of Ice and Fire forums, which are awesome and all that. Don't vote for us in the podcast awards because voting's over. And yeah, thanks so much for listening and have a good day.
Take it easy.
or night.
Thank you.
I do.
Whatever.
Good night.
I'm not prejudiced. Just whatever it is. Have a good
See ya.